Well, hey everybody, it's Thursday, the 18th day of September 2025. I'm Jan Erickson, and this is As Above, So Below. Well, little housekeeping date stuff to look at here. Mercury entered Libra at 3:06 a.m. Pacific time today. Venus goes into Virgo at 5:39 a.m. tomorrow. Saturn is supposed to be really bright this weekend. Mabon week starts on Saturday through next Wednesday. A new moon's on Sunday at 12:54 p.m. Sun enters Libra on Monday, did I say new moon on Sunday? The sun enters Libra on Monday, the 22nd, fall equinox at the same time. Technically Mabon that day, but there's always like a bunch of days that gets. We'll talk more about Mabon on Monday. I just noticed there was just a bunch of things astrologically and astronomy wise that's happening all in a row. So lots of change, lots of transition. Where is there? Okay. My little calculator app when I do the numerology here. Let's go ahead and get started and take a rune from the Elder Futhark bag for the above side or higher self side. Influence for the reading. I have Tiwaz, the God Tier. Tiwaz is the 17th rune of the Elder Futhark. 17, 1 and 7 is 8, so that's has a very strong type of impact, strong influence. It's the spiritual warrior within. It's the expression of faith and justice and higher ideals. Again, it represents the God Tier. It could have something to do with legal matters, sacrifice on behalf of others, basically. So that's an interesting way to start out today. Let's look at the Geomancy rune here. I'll throw down the elemental runes and put them in the order of fire, air, water, and earth. We have Puella or Puella. That's one of the youthful energies of the Geomancy rune set. Pur and Puella are two sides of the same coin. They're each other's complement. Puella would be the little girl's side, and Pur would be the little boy's side. Both have issues of impulse control, but Puella is kind of this scattered little girl energy. It can portend good fortune. She's creative. She's somebody that is very. She's easily distracted. I've said this before, like my little granddaughter running through the pasture looking at one thing and then the other. I was essentially the same way. It's not that you can't focus on things, you can, but it's you're emotional and highly emotional. You get excited about things. That's the Puella energy here, and so it. With Tiwaz, you're looking at keeping that creative energy about you as you're standing up, speaking truth to power, things like that. But let's go ahead and look at the cards and see what they have to add, assuming I can shuffle. My husband's been making apple juice from the apple trees we have. This is the time when they're really good right now, and not very much coddling moth intrusion this year for some reason, which is nice because we've got so many apple trees. It'd be hard to try to protect them against that, but. They're really good. He might make some wine too. He's done that before and it always turns out really well. It's just nice when you can do it with your own trees, the apples from your own trees. So anyway, let's cut the deck, take the lower half, and take 3 cards. Well, we have, this is interesting, talking about transitions earlier, everything moving, going into new moon, and Mercury in Libra, and Venus in Virgo, and the fall equinox, all of that. Here we have 2 cards from the major arcana and the Ace of Cups. Now, I tend to hold the aces as having a lot of power, given that they're the beginning of each suit. In this case, it's the suit of cups, or the element water. So you're dealing with a suit that talks about our emotions and change and momentum and balance, if you will, healing, wellness. So the Ace of Cups would be the beginning of all of that. And then we have the Devil and we have the Lovers. So it's kind of like, well, we're going to let that book end it. So we've got a run on major arcana cards. Those are soul archetype cards, and so there's some strength there. Tiwaz would be as well. I mean, I look at the entire Elder Futhark as being a language of spirit anyway, very akin to the major arcana in terms of strength. With the Norn runes, Isa and Hagalaz and Nothi's being probably the most powerful, given that the Norns reportedly gave the runes to Odin, as he hung upside down from the world tree, to sacrificing an eye for enlightenment, to gain knowledge. And so, but it's the idea of higher knowledge. And so that's when I started these readings. I sort of designated the Elder Futhark rune as the higher self, and influences there. And in terms of Tiwaz, again, you're looking at higher ideals and sacrifice on behalf of others, speaking truth to power, and rising above the mundane or the ego side of self, which, if we look at the Devil, that's exactly what we're getting here. It's the 15th card of the major arcana, so it's got a 6 numerology. You're looking at you see the same type of presentation here that you do here. Okay, you see that? Only this is focused on spirit, and this is focused on ego or form or personality. All right, you see the difference there. And then with the Ace, you've got this brand new impetus here of emotional balance, and striking an emotional balance between higher self and ego, really, with this reading. But let's go ahead and talk about the Devil. We see our Devil figure. He's perched on a little post, part human here, part goat, part bird, if you will. So lots of energy there. The pentagram is turned downward. Here it's turned normally. Here the focus, the point, is pointing down to physical reality, and that's all that means. The Devil is the ego within, to try to control everything about your experiences, how you see them, how you react to them. And here, with the Devil, you're looking at being a slave to desire. Here you see both the female and the male with chains around their necks and tied to this little ring here on the post that the Devil's perching on. You see a very strong card, because here you have the ram's head, basically, or the goat's head, but that might be the sign of Aries, where it's very assertive and maybe controlling when it's ill-dignified. But here you have, instead of, like with the Magician, same sort of hands, one pointing to spirit, one pointing to physical reality. Whereas the Magician would have a wand here pointing up to, sometimes it looks like a scroll to me, a really tightly held scroll, but it's a wand pointing up to spirit. Here you have the Devil with his torch lit, pointing to physical reality, and virtually lighting the guy's tail on fire. And here you have, it's either a strawberry or a pomegranate. Here it could be grapes. It's hard to tell unless maybe you look at them that way. It could be grapes on the tail of the woman. So, but here you have you have the idea of being a slave to desire, a slave to the ego. And what that means is that the ego's in charge. The idea of being able to think beyond yourself, like Tiwaz would be suggesting that you do, to sacrifice on behalf of others, is just not going to happen. With Puella's influence, staying that inspired, creative force to where you can really do justice, because Tiwaz is really about justice, and to do justice to the situation. And not getting bogged down into the mire of the ego. Again, there's a little bit of a scattered focus with Puella, but if you look at the shape of the two, they're very much the same, aren't they? And so you could then say, well, with the positivity of Puella, you turn into in your adulthood into someone with values and principles, and able again to sacrifice or stand up for others. You might be somebody involved in a cause, for a justice oriented cause. That might be Tiwa's energy, an example of that. But basically, with the devil card, you're looking at issues here of not letting your ego get away from you. Sometimes people in a Tiwa's position, exerting that type of energy and focus, tends to at times get off track and be full of themselves. So that would be an example of the devil having a negative or egoic impact on Tiwa's energy. So you have to be very careful with that. And again, with the Ace of Cups, you're looking at the Dove of Peace dropping a disc. This is in full balance here. The little sigil on there is an expression of balance, a balance between spirit and physical reality. So in a sense, spirit and ego. And you see the quintessential hand reaching out from the cloud, like you do in all ace cards in the Rider-Waite Tarot. And also in the Four of Cups, you'll see it offering this chalice you have like an upside, looks like Elwaz there with the M, the rune Elwaz. But and the idea of bringing balance, emotional balance with Elwaz, you're looking at essentially two sides of the same coin. With Elwaz, you're looking at this intuitive bond or partnership that you share, but in this case, you want emotions to be in balance, right? And so that's how I tend to interpret. It's actually not that, I'm sure, when Pamela Coleman Smith drew the cards, it's not what she was saying there, but essentially you're dropping that in, and it's the waters of peace, of higher awareness, spilling over the chalice into the lily pond below. These are all lilies down here. So you have this sense of growth and development of the emotional balance within, and being able to balance ego with higher awareness, essentially. So that, and I always believe that more heavily weighted on higher awareness, because after all, we're not the bodies, we're the soul that has infused the body with itself, with its awareness, with its energy, and to have this physical experience in physical reality. And so consequently, we come to the Lovers here, the sixth card of the major arcana. And again, card 15 reduces to 6. And so you're seeing actually a 6 balance here between the two. So if you, I'll just do this. In fact, I need to do the numerology here. I'll do it right after I talk about the Lovers, though. But when I talk about the idea of having your focus be more heavily weighted on the soul that you are, or spirit, or higher awareness, or the higher mind, or higher consciousness, whatever terminology you want to use is fine. You're looking here at two people, again, nude, with the woman over here, the man over here. You see the tree of life here with the serpent. You see the apples, again, perfect for for Mabon, and here you have the spindly oak tree. You have the angel sitting on the cloud, the light of spirit, the light of the creator above, essentially. That's what the sun represents. You see the mountain here. Now, take a look at where it's leaning. It's leaning in the direction of the woman. And the woman has the tree of knowledge, essentially, behind her. And she is focused on spirit. She's focused on higher awareness. The divine feminine within is reflected in that. But here you have the man with the spindly oak tree that is not really grown into its fullness yet, right? He's still growing. You could say he's not focused on higher awareness. He's focused on her. And so in a sense you have the balance between the divine feminine within and the ego, where he is not focused at all on the message of the angel above. All right. And so just in and of itself, with the Lover's card, you've got an interesting balance there. But if you look at them on either side, the devil and the lovers on either side of the Ace of Cups, it's really talking about having things more heavily weighted on spirit on the lover's side, so that the balance is more self-affirmed, maybe. To where it's stronger. And again, with the Tiwas being the 17th rune, and numerologically that's an 8, you're looking at strength as a part, inner strength to stand up for higher principles here. But not lose sight of the inspiration found with Puella, to actually have that childlike innocence, where you're not bogged down by the ego here. You're truly in that strength position where you're speaking truth to power and you're standing up for what's right. And again, striking that balance between the physical form here in this life that we all live versus the soul that should be driving that experience, and yet tends to get forgotten along the way that's who you are, and then people simply live their egos. And so I think that's what the main focus of what I try to do here is to suggest a different type of focus, to acknowledge the ego within, and to acknowledge when judgment's happening, and perception, and just being and reaction to what's going on, instead of standing back and taking a look at it to see what the higher vision of it all is, right? And to try to see things from that higher perspective versus the reactive ego side of self. And I think that this reading is really interesting, because the Ace of Cups would suggest that you need to strike an emotional balance between the two. But again, the lovers putting that balance more heavily weighted on the divine feminine within, or the female side within, to acknowledge that divinity that we all have. We might forget about it. We might see it sometimes through various religious teachings. They seem to suggest that you have to work your way back to the creator. You have to work your way back to, and then the soul is once you die, then the soul does what it does. And I don't agree with that. I feel that, and I've always believed that that the soul is who we are. And so if that's the case, then the real struggle that we have here is creating a balance between who you are as a soul and then how things manifest in the human body. And like I say, all too often, and we see this all the time, especially these days, where ego is running amok and there is no balance between that side of things and the higher self side of things. There just isn't. They may say, oh, well, it's in service to, religious teachings, but it's not. It's in service to ego, and they don't realize it. And so all of this is playing out, and we can stand back and observe it and understand that that's what's happening, and understand that as souls, we're gaining some knowledge from it, but that doesn't mean we have to participate in it. we can stay neutral and keep that emotional balance to where you're not prone to go off the deep end into ego land and be a difficult person in life to get along with, essentially. um, and so I think here for today, there could be something that happens where you feel like you need to speak out. I would be careful doing that right now. But at the same time, find a way to do it in such a way that represents higher ideals, if that's what you're going to do, and to let go of the ego within, let it take a back seat to the higher awareness within, and find an emotional balance that works for you. When you're doing this, to not get carried away in one direction or the other, but to find that center point that's slightly more heavily weighted on the divine feminine within. And you look at the feminine aspect of self as the void of creation, because from the womb comes the child, right? And so you've got this darkness. From the darkness, if you look at, there's the stanzas of Daizan, where they talk about the idea of we're resting in the Great Mother's breath, that she breathed out the universe. We rest in the Great Mother's breath till she inhales us back. That's an interesting concept to me. That's, if I'm going to visualize creation, that's how I do that. I visualize it that way. It was just really, it blew me away. And when I first read it years ago, and I'm just like, wow. And so it sort of visually gave me something that I can understand about what all this is. Whether you think of the creator as the singularity that expanded itself, became self-aware, and wanted to, discover other things besides the vibration of itself. It's the same thing. It's just how you want to say it. It's just the terminology you want to use. What works for you? What touches your heart the best, I think. And so I think, again, you're looking at, with the devil and the lovers, that balance that the Ace of Cups is talking about here with this little disc, and it manifested in this disc here, that the dove of peace is dropping in to the water of the chalice. That's nourishing, that's loving, that's kind, that's healing, that's strong. It has an emotional strength to it. Again, with Tiwaz, an emotional strength there. Even though Tiwaz is an air element rune, or is thought to be, I view it as an air element rune, especially as we're moving into the time of Libra here coming up. I'm a Libran, and so it's striking that balance between one side and the other, where you can experience that, and trying to keep that be the active type of energy that you have about yourself, so you're not one end or the other. A Libran who is out of balance is freaky, and so it's not a good place, because it's not what you're supposed to be, right? And it's very, very, it's try going through menopause when you're a Libran. It's like, how do I get back to the center? And when the body doesn't want to let you, and so I think that's what we're looking at here today, is keeping an emotional balance while you're expressing integrity and speaking truth to power, and having that level of mindset that is higher awareness based versus ego. That there's higher principles that we need to all live by, period. And we're not doing it right now. Well, some are, some aren't, but it's not we'll just say it's not happening, because it's all about the self. It's all about protection of the self, and whatever stuff you've been doing and you don't want people knowing about. And so everybody's got to come together and, in service to the lie. And it's that type of energy that we're dealing with right now. And what T was, it's like, yeah, I don't think so. We're going to know the truth about things. And there's a lot of that going on right now, where there's a bunch of lying going on, a bunch of protection of people that don't want to go to jail, and that kind of experience, that we're witnessing happening in real time. And it's like, well, it's about time that it happened. But, at the same time, you've got some people in Congress, for example, that are standing up for survivors right now. And I think you probably know what I'm talking about, but they're standing up for the survivors. And it's like, no, we're going to know what this is. Period. End of story. We're going to know what this is. And whoever is involved, so what? I mean, bring it out. We got to know. No matter who it is. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on. Doesn't matter. We have to know the truth. It's that type of energy. And so again, in that process, everybody's got to keep their cool about it and stay balanced, stay emotionally balanced while they're doing that, so that they don't get off track and they don't get too far one way or too far the other way. You can either be extraordinarily self-righteous or you can be extraordinarily egoic, but they're kind of two sides of the same thing. It's still the ego having that process, where they're secretive or they're self-righteous, right? You can't have either one. Gotta have the truth. And so this could be talking about that, but otherwise, there just could be something that you feel real strongly about, and it's got to be based in higher principles, not in terms of what's in it for me, and what, or protection for me or whatever. It can't be that. It has to be, something where you're sacrificing on behalf of others, sacrificing on behalf of the truth. Okay. So again, this may have to do with what's going on, with all of that. But on the other hand, it could be a very personal thing for you today where, this is how you feel, and in its expression, especially with Mercury and Libra now, you want to keep a balance about yourself, and in how you express that. So how you express that fundamental truth. So anyhow, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll go over to the blog at Stepping Aside. The web address there is imsteppingaside.com. I am stepping aside, not I am, but I am. If you forget, click on more below the video, that little word, and it'll open a box and it'll be right there at the top. The web address will be. If you have not yet clicked subscribe here, I would love you to do that. And I do this Mondays and Thursdays, unless something happens and I have to do it on a different day, but I never know that's coming. But anyway, but typically that's when they are. And so I'd love you to click subscribe and come back and join me here, and this little group of people that like to know about tarot and runes and all of that. Become one of those if you're interested in that. Check out the blog on Sunday mornings in the midnight hour. I post the forecast for the week and the correspondences for work and magic. I also do reading note write-ups for these videos that I do also there. I post those over on Substack as well. That's called Witch Notes. I wrote a book called Witch Notes, so I just titled that Witch. I started with this series on the blog called Witch Notes, and then I ended up doing a little book of correspondences that I use, and I published that as Witch Notes. And so I just called the others, so there's a little consistency there. So I just called that my Substack Witch Notes, but it's also under my name, Jan Erickson. So. But in any event, thanks again for watching. Enjoy the weekend, and come back again on Monday on the new moon day. Also, fall equinox, or Sunday is the new moon. The fall equinox is on, and actually Mabon on Monday. Come back on Monday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself. Be good to one another, and blessed be.